Hello, and welcome to Tech Cubicle on SAP. I am Daryl Griffiths, and this is my weekly 180, where I spend 180 seconds on the latest techie news that impacts the world of SAP. At the end, I'll pick my favourite to review in a little more detail in the cubicle. It's Sapphire this week, and info will be leaking out in droves over the coming days, so next week's 180 will be a roundup. In my SAP techie news this week, Technology magazine posts about Qatari investment group's adoption of SAP S4HANA through RISE with SAP. The existing ERP system will be migrated to S4HANA and hosted in RISE within Qatar. The link is down below. Diginomica this week is getting into the Sapphire swing with another segment with Jan Gilg, President and Chief Product Officer for SAP's Cloud ERP. In this article, the interview poses the question about cloud-only ERP innovation, and Gilg responds by saying, and many of the kinds of innovation that we announce now in the cloud only, they couldn't consume them anywhere because you have to be at least on the latest S4. And he's referring to customers being slow at staying up to date, which I don't think is 100% an IT problem. The link is down below. Two articles on ft.com this week. First, DXC announced their new DXC Fast RISE with SAP service aimed at accelerating customers' S4HANA projects. The new service includes a broad assessment that helps clients to understand the full scope of the RISE with SAP transformation program. On the DXC website, there is a little more detail and mentions that this service also includes pre-configured solutions. I'll put a link to the DXC site in the comments as well as the ft.com link. Second, Epi-Use partner up with ReluTech. The article talks about how Epi-Use with its AWS and SAP capabilities, combined with ReluTech's third-party maintenance, hardware procurement and cloud migration services, together make a partnership that will help customers fund their cloud modernization through ReluTech's asset recovery and data center solutions. Having looked through ReluTech's website, they offer an interesting approach to IT asset management by providing third-party support for hardware and also providing a form of simple buyback for end-of-life kit, allowing a customer to go through a simple process of moving onto the cloud and easily disposing of on-premise equipment. I'll put a link down below. Snowflake is in the news for the wrong reasons. A blog post from cybersecurity expert Kevin Beaumont asks whether Snowflake's cloud database SaaS product has a vulnerability that has allowed hackers to steal customers' databases, or if they were the victim of info stealers, and that's where employees use improperly secured non-corporate devices for doing ad hoc corporate work and inadvertently expose their corporate credentials to harvesting malware, who then resold those credentials to hackers. Customers such as Ticketmaster and a number of other high-visibility customers have said they've been impacted. The Australian security services have issued advice for Australian organisations using Snowflake, but it applies to any company in any country. Disable non-active accounts, enable multi-factor authentication, and review user activity. The link is down below. Lastly, Absoft, the UK-based SAP implementation and managed services company, has been acquired by Applexus Technologies Inc., a global SAP services provider. Ingesting Absoft will augment the Applexus global coverage by providing a European hub. There seems to be an ever-shrinking pool of UK-based owned SAP consultancies. My favourite item this week is the Diginomica article with Jan Gilg. I always find these Diginomica articles a fascinating read. I think that is to do with the transparency that comes across from the interviews maybe, I'm not sure. In this article, it seems SAP have toiled over how to communicate their cloud strategy more clearly and accepting that they do not want to alienate those early S4HANA adopters who are running on-premise. Gilg highlights that SAP are acknowledging those customers who trusted SAP's initial guidance of moving to S4HANA early. That's why we have now launched this migration fund to refund some of those costs. The fund mentioned is the S4HANA Migration and Modernisation program, where existing SAP ERP or S4HANA customers get credits to move to RISE. Now, I don't know how customers feel about this, but in the UK, if you buy a product one day and the next day that product is on sale at a significant discount, your consumer rights allow you to return the original product, and you can then, of course, rebuy it at the reduced rate. I don't think that's going to work for SAP RISE customers who have already signed up before this incentive was launched, but the deal is said to only be available for new customers only for new purchases of RISE with SAP signed before December 31st, 2024, and there's a caveat on that date. So that settled the argument that existing early S4HANA adopters have about moving to RISE, right?
I don't think so.
The next questionable section is where Gilg talks about cloud-only innovation. Specifically, customers do fall behind quite significantly on the revisions, and many of the kinds of innovation that we announce now in the cloud only, they couldn't consume them anywhere because you have to be at least on the latest S4. My feelings on this are that customers don't intentionally fall behind. They try and stay supported, and if there is no need for an EHP or to move to the latest release, why pay that price every year? When an upgrade needs to be done, customers generally manage to do it within timeframes of SAP support requirements. The problem is not technical, I feel. It usually stems from an availability of resources needed for testing. And when I say resources, they can be business people, environments, and they can also be integrated products. A project landscape of systems being tied up with a merger and acquisition is not going to magically become available for an upgrade project without significant additional cost. Now let's see how that would play out in a RISE-hosted SAP landscape. SAP dictate that the next release upgrade is due, the customer has a defined number of months to move to it. There is obviously less control for the customer, less leeway. The idea of clean core methodology by SAP is to speed up upgrades by reducing the amount of customization in the system. But, I've said it before, having a clean core does not remove the time consumed in testing. If anything, it complicates it further as the functionality, code, process, or whatever you want to call it, is now in another system, which also could have its own upgrade time windows. Further down the article, Gilg is asked about the future of on-premise. He stresses that his own personal opinion is that I also need to see that we get these older on-premise releases off the market, and makes the point that they consume costly development time that could be used instead for cloud innovation. I've already supposed that this development effort is the reason SAP will not shift the end of maintenance deadline for SAP Business Suite 7. Pressed further, he says about S4HANA on-premise. Even those customers who want to stay on-premise, they will still receive the innovation that we ship as part of the on-premise ship, which is similar to private cloud, and then there are certain things, of course, that will be private cloud or RISE only, which doesn't really clear anything up for me. Lastly, the discussion moves on to the future of SAP. Here is where it could get sticky. Gilg is essentially suggesting that on-premise is still on-premise because long-running customer projects that leave customers in a position that they can barely upgrade anymore and are cut off from our software innovation. Customers maximizing value out of their systems are effectively shooting themselves in the foot. I've already touched on how an upgrade could look in RISE, and even with a clean core, it might not stop lengthy projects from blocking an upgrade. SAP would like to bring customers to a model where we serve them at their ERP as a service as much as possible. In short, tidy your room or you'll be going to bed early. As always, reference links are in the description, drop me a comment down below, give the video a thumbs up, and most importantly subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, bye bye.